Welcome back, everybody, to Fusion's Ramblings. In this series, we take a few minutes and we talk about random things. And today we're going to be talking about something interesting, and that is the future of travel. As we travel along our expressway here in the Swan Survival Minecraft server, so what can we talk about when we talk about the future of travel? Well, first, what do we do today? We fly on planes, we take trains, we drive by car, we walk. People still use horses, camels, donkeys. We travel by boat. Some people travel by rocket if they're going to space, so I guess we could count that as well, right? Um, and those are really the primary modes of transportation. There's some other unique ones that do exist out there, of course. And so the question is where is the future of travel going? And I think really it can go in a lot of different directions. Um, there are some advances being made all across in different ways. For example, there's advances being made with um, cars. We've got more and more electric cars with automated driving. Or where you can just sit back and let the car drive for you, which is quite interesting. Um, and then we have uh, that going a little bit further to where we're seeing on automated taxis. We're seeing situations where they're working on flying taxis, drone type transportation. So that's another one, because they are now able to make drones large enough and powerful enough and yet small, to where you can fit one or two people in them and they can carry you to different places. And of course, along with that is the delivery service, that's happening, or delivery services that is happening. So there's a lot of different, um, unique, you could say, transportation opportunities from that perspective. But then there's also, transportation when we look at especially Asia, in advanced uh, railways. I mean, obviously, Europe has had the TGB and some, high-speed trains for a while. Japan has had high-speed trains as well for quite some time. Um, but then, other countries are catching up. First it was the subway was the cool thing, whether it was elevated or underground, or commuter trains, right? But then you have countries like China and different countries in Asia and in Europe too, where they're starting to link locations and countries together with hypertrains, speed trains that can travel 2 to 300, kilometers an hour, and you can go just as fast in some cases as you could on an airplane to the next city. So, there's a lot of capability from that perspective. We could talk about the Hyperloop that was, first proposed by Elon Musk and then, being explored by a number of other groups. Um, I don't know if the California one will ever get finished. So many people are complaining about the money being spent on it. More likely, it'll be others in different countries, India, for example, that'll be the first really to launch that technology. And whether that's going to be the future, or it'll be something more along the lines of, the high-speed trains that we see um, in Asia and Europe, who knows? There's different advantages to both. But that leads us to, you know, other things. I was wondering, well, what else is there? I mean, Musk with Starship has said that, you could potentially take a Starship, and go around the world in 30 minutes, and get to locations and things like that. I'm not sure if that's really practical from an expense standpoint, even though his rockets are much cheaper than, conventional rockets and many others that we think about. There might be different situations where that does work, and then situations where I just don't think it's very practical. And then we can talk about, some of the weird stuff, like, they're talking about bringing supersonic jets back. There's all kinds of problems with supersonic jets, as far as sound and damage that can happen, but who knows? That's a capability. Or we can look at what we are aware of in science fiction, which is a lot. For example, we might think about, underwater highways, superhighways that go across the oceans and speed you on your way, where you can cross the Atlantic in a few minutes or a matter of hours, depending on, I don't know, how fast the vehicles can go in a closed loop, kind of like Hyperloop, but, where it's individual vehicles. Or you might think about Isaac Asimov's robot series, where I forget which book it is, but in one of them, a couple of the humans they're on a planet where the robots have built a city, and um, the robots themselves and the humans get around by getting into these transportation pods, and the pods just zoom you really fast to any location you need to. They're individual and group pods, and there's tons of kind of like tracks, I guess, if you call it that, underground. And you can go anywhere, and it only takes a matter of minutes to get anywhere across the city. Um, that could be an option, potentially. Or we might think about situations like Ringworld, where in Ringworld there was the Puppeteer planet. And on the Puppeteer planet, they had transportation rings. Basically, they were these discs that were just laid out on the ground. And the moment you step into the disc, you're instantaneously transported a certain distance to another disc, and you step out. Some of them were short distances where you step on it and the next moment you're across the street, or you step on it and you're on the 300th floor of a building, or you step on it and you're 20 miles away. Um, so that could be interesting. I could see a lot of advantages to something like that. Um, for street crossings, river crossings, for pedestrians. I guess you could adapt it to vehicles as well. That would be quite interesting. Or, maybe acting as an elevator where you um, go between floors by stepping on a disc, and you're transported there. Um, who knows? We might look at the Star Trek world where we have transporters. And typically, of course, in a lot of the Star Trek shows in the past, transporters were limited to space stations and, you know, spaceships and things like that. But there's also, for example, in one of the newer movies that came out, um, we see the transporters being used within the cities, where just your average person steps in, you click an address, and away you go. And you're transporting yourself to different parts of the city. So that might be something that could be a possibility. If we want to talk about long distance transport, it might be gateways, um, which would be similar in nature, you could say, to a transporter, but this is a gate where you go into whether you're driving a vehicle or walking or whatever, you walk into this gate type thing, And the next thing you know, you are transported vast distances. Those distances, might be to another star, to another planet, across the universe. Kind of like the Stargate series, if you've seen that, where, you go through a gate and, it takes you through a wormhole or, something like that, anyways, and you're connected. Obviously, that's more on a large scale and not like local on the ground and, on Earth or a planet or in a city or something like that. But that could be a potential to where you have that capability to go ahead and utilize that as a form of transportation. There might be other situations as well uh, that we encounter as we explore and come across the ability to transport ourselves, whether it's flying bikes, jetpacks. There's a lot of different ideas that float around out there. So, those could be options that we come across. And, those are all interesting capabilities that we want to think about as far as transportation in the future and, what could be a potential situation um, for transportation. There we go. Uh, Outside of those, so let's talk about some other ideas that are more on a local scale. I've seen, everything from, in sci-fi movies and of course books and comics and all of that, where you have um, individual pods and, things like that that allow you to take advantage of going places, quickly within a city or within a community. We've got Saudi Arabia trying to create a city that is based on, underground transportation and above ground. It's all, pedestrian space and stuff like that. So that could be a, potential solution for the future. Um, and, obviously I don't know, they have plans of like doing it across 100 kilometer stretch across the desert. I don't know if that's practical, but who knows, what'll happen. There's water transportation too. uh, you know, Advanced water transportation. For example, um, outside of Australia, I think they have planes, water planes, or aircraft that can land on water, but they skim across the waves, and that's how they transport people to various islands, across different locations. That could be a concept. I know that the blimp or something of that nature has um, been looked at and being renewed as a form of transportation. Not a very fast one, I would say, but that could be something on a small local scale. Um, I really do think, though, that over time we're going to see less and less actual driving, and things are going to be more automated, across the board. Um, I just think that's the way it'll go, simply because, in today's world, not that humans are bad drivers, but really we are. Um, and so, maybe removing that situation to create safer transportation for everybody would be the right thing to do, right? Because then you wouldn't have to worry about as many accidents. It would be safer, at least you'd hope so. Who knows, maybe there'll be flying cars. Do we really want um, a ton of people, flying around in the air in their flying cars? Or do we want, it to be controlled in an orderly manner so that, um, you know, people don't get into accidents and you're safer? It's one thing to get in an accident on the highway. It's quite another to get into an accident, um, in the air. You fall out of the sky when that happens. And so not necessarily something you want to occur, right? Um, so, there's a lot of the different things we have to think about when it comes to transportation and what the future could hold. I definitely think there's a lot of change coming. Um, and whether you embrace that change or don't like that change, who knows? We'll have to wait and see and, adjust as we have through time. I mean, that's what's happened, right? We went from walking to then using animals, and then from using animals to using, vehicles, steam-powered vehicles, electric vehicles, things like that. And then, of course, in today's world, most of it's based on combustion engines, things like that. And now we're moving into uh, the electric car age, kind of reversal a little bit, but obviously much better. Um, so the future and transportation is definitely going to change. But that's all the time we have today for Fusion's Ramblings. But thank you for joining as we collected some cats here on our Minecraft world, and we shall see you in the next video.